All right, everybody. Well, greetings and welcome once again to the RecPoker podcast. I'm your host, one of many, Steve Fredland. And as always, joined by our panel today, we've got Jim Reed and Chris Jones. And thanks to our official sponsor, Running Aces Racetrack, Casino, and now Hotel, opening in 2 days. And our other podcast sponsors, Learn Pro Poker and website AMP. And this is episode 171. And today we are excited because we're going to be talking with Brad Wilson, who is the host of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast, along with a bunch of other stuff, which I will let him fill you in on. A couple of just two really important announcements we want to get out there real quick. The Bar League and home game communities have launched. Incredible value, super low pricing until March 31st. Go to rec.poker to check that out. And also we have launched our programs for ambassadors, affiliates, champions, and friends. So feel free to just hit us up with any questions about any of that cool stuff going on. So with that, let's welcome in Brad Wilson. Brad, how we doing?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
Real good. Now, we had a chance to chat not too long ago on your podcast, which is super cool. You got some really cool things going on there. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you living, what you doing, what you involved with. Introduce yourself to the Rec Poker Nation.
So my name is Brad Wilson.
Hi, Brad.
I play poker. I've been a poker player for, I don't even know anymore. The math is hard. I'm 36. I've been doing it since I was 20. It's been my career, my passion. I love doing it. And now I've got the podcast rolling, meeting a lot of amazing people in the poker world. It's fun times.
Now, was this your first podcast, or have you done podcasting before, or how did this come about?
I did another podcast that was not related to poker. I think that as a professional poker players understand that after 10 to 15 years of being immersed in the game, what you want more than anything a lot of times is to get the hell out of the game. It's very tough being a professional poker player and not having any certainty. Not only the variance of, am I going to win from session to session? Am I going to have a winning or losing month? But also the variance of, oh, is my poker site going to disappear overnight? Oh, is what's going to happen with regulation on a day-to-day basis? And I live in Atlanta, Georgia, so I'm in a poker dead zone, which is not too fun, which is another reason, let's create some valuable content for people, make some connections, and help people out on their poker journey, which is sort of the basis for Chasing Poker Greatness, my podcast.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is you're very polished. I mean, I've listened to your podcast. It's fantastic. It just seems like here's a dude who knows what he's doing. So I figure there must be some sort of a history there of being in communications or something.
Yeah, I forgot the question.
No, you
the
you
first
got
part
it.
of the question was I did have another podcast. It was called The Process. No more new episodes, sorry, but it was basically me interviewing high achievers in various fields, not niche down at all, but famous authors, Olympic champions, just really amazing folks, and distilling their process, how they improve, how they go about, how does world famous author go about creating on a daily basis, and breaking that down and sharing that with the audience. That was the goal or the premise. And then I learned quickly that I didn't niche down enough, and I'm not famous, so hard to get an audience when you don't start out famous and you don't niche down. So
Right.
I killed that podcast, got back into poker, and when the stars kind of aligned, I launched Chasing Poker Greatness.
Okay, now so wait a second. So you're not famous? Because
Well,
we maybe should just end this right here because I thought you were famous. Okay.
I'm
I've been
sorry,
misinformed.
sorry to disappoint you, sir. Sorry.
Right. Well, I'm just glad that, that we have Jim Reed muted right now because he'd be asking you questions about the process. And I want to thank you for clarifying that it's the process. Hey, Jim, so you understand how the difference is there. But
Thanks a lot, Steve, throwing that in.
yeah. So Brad, in addition to you've been playing for a number of years. You got the podcast. You're also doing some coaching, and what are some other things that you're involved with in the poker community?
I don't know. I do. I have a weekly poker. There's so many things, right, on a daily basis. It's like, I need to play my 1,000 hands. For me personally, I need to edit my podcasts. I need to produce them. I need to post them. I have a poker power hour every Wednesday, which is like a 1 hour study session with with people that opt into my email list. Like, there are just so many things. And then I have, so many projects that are like, I want to get completed, I want to get started. And, I have a course that's like 80% complete, but Elliot Rowe would definitely break down some of my mindset issues when it comes to completing my course. But the reality is, like, I want it to be good, I want it to be beneficial, and I want it to be elegant, have elegant solutions for people to improve relatively, to improve simply. Like that, this is the problem with creating poker training material. Is in a complex game of chaos, how do you distill it and make it and simplify it so that people can take action and implement it? And that's sort of the problem that I'm running into with my course. Like, frankly, I could complete it in about 2 days and have it ready to go, but in my opinion, it's just not as easily consumable as I would like, and that's holding me back.
Yeah. So what would you say is your favorite thing to do? And let's just assume that all things make the same amount of money, or that the money is no object. Like, in whether it's in poker or outside of poker, like what is that thing that you just love doing? Whether it's, could be interviewing people, it could be coaching, could be creating training materials, it could be
In a,
playing. Like,
in a
what is it?
professional sense, right? Um,
Well, let's do professional, and then if you want to talk about personal, that's cool too.
so in a professional sense, my favorite thing, if money was no object and everything was equal, would be creating training content, breaking down hand histories with people whose opinions I respect and I know can provide value for my audience, and also the interview process. I mean, just today, I've done 2 interviews already with folks, and every time I end the conversation, press the little exit meeting button, I get a jolt of adrenaline and dopamine, and I'm just pumped, man. It's like I just had an amazing conversation with an awesome human being. Like, what better feeling is there in life, And I think that's, if I could do something every single day, that's what I would do.
I love it. I love it too, and I think that fuels a lot of us that are on this show too. To have somebody like you who I didn't know before poker, and now come on and get to pick your brain. I think I'm the same way. I'm in the candy store getting to chat with all kinds of cool people. Now, you mentioned kind of the hand breakdowns and stuff. So I want to bring Chris into the fold here. Chris is our content lead, and he's always coming up with these great hands that lead to these great discussions. And so I'm going to put all this pressure on you now, Chris. But I know you have a hand that you wanted Brad to take a shot at giving some insight on.
Yeah, hi, Brad.
How's it going, Chris?
Good, good. So generally, what we try to do in this show is bring a hand either from some big tournament and talk about situations that rec players sort of find themselves in, or a hand that actually one of a rec player in our community has played. But this actually hand comes from the main event, from this year's main event. But I think it's a hand that is really common situation that rec players find themselves in and struggle with. And I'd really be curious to have this conversation. So I'll give you a little bit of context. This is the main event. We're day 6. We're in the money. There's 82 left. Current payout is 82,000. And there's actually a pay jump at the next elimination to 98,000. But of course, we probably don't care that much about that because there's 10 million up top. So that's kind of the situation we're in. Blinds are at 50K, 100K, 100K. And I'm going to reveal the names of the players later. They're both famous, but I think it might be more interesting to talk about the situation in general, and we can talk about who they are at the end.
For sure.
Go ahead.
2 things before we jump into the hand. Number one, this is so I'm a cash game player.
Yeah.
I play almost all cash, so you're asking a cash game player tourney question. But number 2, I probably don't even know who they are. If they're famous in the poker world, if they're famous tournament players, I'm so out of the tournament world. Like I say on my show all the time, like, I haven't watched the WSOP on ESPN. I'm a cord cutter, so I don't even have cable. I haven't watched it in like 10 years. Tournament guys that come on my show, they get referred by other people. I mean, they're obviously amazing folks. It's just a different, cash game and tournaments are such a different world. But with all that being said, I think I can give some good feedback.
Yeah, and I think the thing about the main event also is that although this situation we're deep into it, so we are getting shorter, but there are these tournaments that play cash-ish because they are so deep. Um, but anyway, I mean, in this situation we are a little shorter, so we'll cut you some slack. I would still say you're probably more of an expert than the rest of us because we're all rec players here. But
If it's
I,
on how to get like 8 bets in with like 11 big blinds, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Okay. But so what we are here is we're the player under the gun +2. Again, we're at the 50K, 100K, 100K level. Opens to 220K from a stack of 3 million. So
Okay.
they have about 30 big blinds. They kind of open a min raise open, min raise plus open. And so we're going to take the perspective from the hijack position. So we're in the hijack. This one player has opened. We have 3.8 million, so about 38 big blinds. And we look down at Ace of Hearts, King of Spades. And
Okay.
this is where I think the adventure begins for a lot of players. We're in this murky stack size kind of situation. We have too much to just open shove. It's too strong of a hand to probably flat, but I mean, you could maybe make the case for flatting here. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts about Ace King offsuit in this situation.
I'll answer your question with a question,
Yeah.
like I do with my students. So my question is, who are the other players at the table? Do we know anything about them? Are they super squeezy behind? How aggressive is the field? Are there any table dynamics? Because number one, these like who are the blinds, for instance? If the blinds are like super nits, then you said it was undergun +1. He's going to be incentivized to open wider. So our ace king can be a better 3-bet candidate versus a table full of nits. If the big blind, small blind, maybe they have post flop tendencies or they're recreational players. Like all of these things are going to affect my decision. Who are the players behind? Maybe the button is ultra squeezy and they're sitting on like 16 or 17 bigs, and I want to manufacture a spot to induce a shove to get in ace king dominated versus a shove. So like before I can make my decision, these are all sort of things I'm trying to observe, look at, and analyze. So yeah, you may not have answers for those questions, but I'm kind of like going back. Go ahead.
Oh, I do have some answers to that. We are there's one shorter stack at this table who has already folded, and the players behind us all cover us. First of all, second of all, it's a mix of what I would call well-known, really good pros and a couple of kind of more recreational, maybe less experienced players behind us. So it's a real mix, but they all cover us. Most of them have about at least double our stack. They're kind of all sitting on 6 to 8 million in chips. So we're sitting there sort of covered by the people still to play behind us.
And I'm not dodging the question, but I got more questions.
Yeah, sure.
What's my image, right? Like who's the guy that raised under the gun? Like, are they prone to flat 3-bets? Are they prone to 4-bet? Are they prone to be super aggressive? Like if I've been folding for the last few hours or whatever it is, like maybe I have a tightish image. And there's just all these factors. I think that because this is obviously it's a major decision, right? This is probably if you lose, might be the most major decision that you ever make playing poker ever, period. So you want as much information as you can about every single hand that you're playing so that you can try to optimize these decisions. And so like whenever I like one thing I'm gonna get on I don't want to derail the hand, but
derail away, man. Let's go.
Yeah, go. Let's derail.
I mean, I'll just interject. I don't want to interrupt, but like, I mean, the questions that you're asking, these are the things that we're trying to learn as well. Not just what the answer is. It's what's the process? How are you thinking about this? What are the questions that are emerging in your mind that some of us are going, oh, I didn't even think about that consideration. So just you kind of stream of consciousness saying, here's the things I'm thinking about. Is super helpful, at least to me, and I think to a lot of our audience.
See, this is the problem, right? This is the problem with the course. You can't give somebody concrete answers for a situation because even if a situation looks the same, it can be very, very different. And so, like, I always, on my show, like, I'm always plugging Berkey's Solve for Why, but really, what I'm plugging more than anything, not, they have a great product. I love all the things that they do, but solving for why is like the essence of poker. Like, why are you making this decision? If you understand the why and you're good at deductive reasoning, you're good at collecting information and then using this information to make decisions at the poker table, this is the heart of being a fundamental great poker player. And you're not going to find like cookie cutter answers of like, look at this hand chart and raising these positions and voila, magically you're a crusher in the games. That's just not how life works. And so my segue before I got on this current segue was, when my students, they come to me, they ask me a question, a lot of times I find they give me incomplete information, right? Like if they have the information, if they can answer the questions that I'm asking them, they would have reached a logical conclusion and would have been able to make a decision. So as a coach, my job is to give these guys these questions that they can ask themselves to come to the correct answer. If I tell them what the correct answer is, well, that's great, but they don't learn anything. They can't do anything with that. So anyway, that was my little segue.
Well, and I think I can answer some of the questions here. So as well. So the player who opened, I would say is, I don't know exactly, but I did watch several hours of this table play, and I've seen some of the dynamics at play here. So I'm not in their heads. I don't know them exactly, but what I observed was that the opener, the under the gun +2 player, the opener, is an accomplished pro, really well respected in the world, is very what I would call sticky, like somebody who will float a lot, who will stick around in hands a lot to see how their opponent reacts. Somebody who's likely, if I 3-bet here, to call a 3-bet, assuming parts of their range at least, to sort of see or even 4-bet me back. And so that's what I think that player is. And in terms of our image as the hijack, I think we're seen as a very potentially much more active player than what I would say at least the general field is in a tournament that people play. This is a tournament where people play, I think, more sort of scared than they do or more at least straightforward than they do in sort of some other spaces. So we're definitely seen as somebody who is not afraid to put our chips in light. We're not somebody who's we're definitely one of the more active players at this table.
Here's another consideration too, and like the funny thing about this is like it's going to be hard for me to actually answer it's going to be hard for me to answer the actual question, but I'm trying to kind of give my process. And so one thing to consider in a tournament setting where you only have one life, right? You got no extra lives. This is a good player. I don't know who it is, but an accomplished player, a good player who's opening from early position, and now we're going to be 3-betting them. So why are we going out of our way to 3-bet and attack this player, right? So like if we do 3-bet, which I am leaning towards 3-betting because of the aggressive overall dynamic, this is the first question that UTG +1 is going to ask. Why is he going out of his way to attack me? So I think in that, he's not likely to go ham with 4-betting. And I would think that like if he does flat, he's going to have a pretty narrow range, and it's going to be a pretty, it's going to be like jacks, tens, ace queen suited type of hands. I wouldn't think that he's going to be just out there on some sort of flyer.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And so in action, should I tell you kind of how this hand progressed then from this point? Okay.
I'll say that I'll 3-bet just because I got nothing, there's no stakes for me. We'll 3-bet.
Okay.
2.2x, and I don't even know what the standard 3-bet in a tournament is, but we'll say I'll probably go something like 3x, maybe 6.8, 6.8x, something like that.
Okay. So in actuality, the hijack us, we three bet to 530K, so slightly smaller. It's actually a pretty small three bet, even from my understanding of what you might typically do in sort of a tournament setting at this point. But so it's a small one, and under the gun +2 calls us. So we have 1.3 million in the pot, and the flop comes. Again, we have Ace of Hearts, which may be somewhat important here, and King of Spades. And the flop comes King of Hearts, Five of Clubs, Ten of Hearts, and under the gun +2 checks to us.
Yeah, snap checking back.
This is really interesting. That was my thought about this hand, and where I thought this may have gone awry for our hero in this position. Not that I'm in any position to question somebody of this sort of caliber, but I thought the in this position the hijack does bet out, and I really thought that seemed like a mistake to me. Tell me why you said snap check back.
I'm just not going to have a betting range on this board. You said it's King 5 Deuce Rainbow?
It's King 5 Deuce with two hearts. The
Oh,
King
two
and
hearts.
the 10 are sorry. It's King 5 10, and the King and the 10 are hearts.
5-10 with a King. King 5-10. I still think I'm checking back. Like, we have. Yeah, I'm just checking back range. I mean, so how much left do we have behind? We got like 2.5, so
Yeah, something like that.
SPR's less than 2. Villain can't have any high equity draws. They're almost never going to have Queen Jack suited. They're just they're just not going to have it because of our three bet. I mean, our three bet sizing screams we're strong. Like, we're not messing around. We're three betting small versus an early position raiser. Like, we're trying to get action here. We're just not messing around. So I wouldn't think that they have like Queen Jack suited. They're definitely going to have tens. Like, they're 100% going to have tens. Tens are going to give us a ton of action. They can't have Ace Queen of Hearts, which is a hand that like we beat. I would rather not have the Ace of Hearts actually in this situation. But yeah, like I'm just not going to have a betting range in this spot because when villain shoves, it's just not going to be good for us, even though it seems hard it seems hard to be beat, but it also seems like, what are they shoving?
Right, right. Yeah, that's some of my similar thinking here. Is I was really thinking this was a board and a situation where we want and then SPR actually, like you mentioned, where it really makes a lot of sense to check back on this.
Another thing too that I failed to mention was, like, if we do check back, if villain did get out of line, and I think thinking in terms of absolutes in poker and saying like, oh, this is villain's range, period. Who knows? Like, sometimes, guys can call super wide. They can do things that are unexpected. But like, if they do have some sort of like ace jack of diamonds, right, or ace queen of diamonds, right, a gutter, just a pure gutter, and they're like, okay, they try to blow us off our queens or our jacks by betting. Like, we want to give them an opportunity to put money in the pot when they have a low equity hand. And so if we bet, we lose that opportunity for them to put more money in when they just have a gutter and they have a really bad hand. So like, checking back is sort of multi-purposed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I tend to agree, but in actuality, we bet out 485K, and under the gun +2 calls us. And the turn comes the Jack of Diamonds. So we have a board of King of Hearts, Five of Clubs, 10 of Hearts, and Jack of Diamonds. And under the gun +2 checks to us again. There's 2.28 million in the pot. We're about 1.8 million effective at this point. Any thoughts here?
How are you with cursing on this podcast? What's the word on cursing? My thoughts are F. I mean,
yeah.
we beat absolutely nothing at this point. Like, we beat Ace Jack that flatted out of position on the flop and turned a pair, but like we really don't beat anything. I'm checking back again.
Okay. And that's another. This is another spot where I was wondering. So I'll tell you what happens in real life, and then we can talk about it.
Please don't tell me they shoved.
They shoved,
Oh, that's
um,
bad.
and so under the gun +2 snap calls and has ace
Pin.
queen.
Oh, ace queen. Okay.
And but I was really thinking. I mean, this the player who did this is really good, and I was really trying to figure out this shove here in this spot. I mean, are we trying to push off, I guess, that ace jack? And I'm really struggling to find what we're actually trying to accomplish with that. But
Let me create a scenario here for the audience that's listening. You know, you play cards. You live to play cards. It's your life. You're a pro. You're playing in the biggest tournament in the world for the biggest first prize, all the prestige, the fame, the glory. It's what you dream about. There's 80 people left. There are thousands when it starts. You can smell the finish line. You can see it. Think about the pressure that you feel in a situation like that. And think about, you got to perform. You got to perform. You can't make mistakes. But the pressure, and I don't care what anybody says, that pressure is going to get to almost anybody. And so my thought is that dude just messed up. He played it bad. And I hope it's not a guest that comes on my podcast, because I literally don't know.
Well,
who it is.
we'd love to have either of these people on the podcast, and they're both really solid. I mean, so I'll tell you who they were. So I don't know if the Undergun +2 is Dario Sammartino, who finished second in the main event this year, and then the hijack is Antonio Esfandiari, and they're both very prominent, wildly successful, millions of dollars in tournament earnings between the two of them. So
And another thing that's like non-quantifiable, and I will say that, like, in a vacuum, I can't imagine Antonio's play being good here, and also can't imagine Antonio feeling the pressure, being a one-drop champion, and all the success that he's had. So maybe that goes out the window too. But maybe there's some crazy dynamic that these two guys have, some metagame or past history that's coming into play on poker's biggest stage that nobody really knows about or nobody's seen before, that would come into play. But I just cannot imagine this. I can't imagine this being a good play. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Dario floated out of position with ace queen.
Yeah, well,
that's
that was
a
the
little
other
surprising
question
too.
about this hand too. Is like, is that float with just a gut shot there? He has no hearts. It's I think ace of spades, queen of diamonds. I think he's got no hearts, so he's got no backdoor hearts. He's basically just got a gutter. I mean, that's an interesting float too.
If you think about it in terms of balance, the potential combinations of hands that both player can have, like from a balance perspective, Dario does need to be flatting the flop with hands that are not middle set, hands that are not super value. I don't know. I don't think he calls king queen pre, so I don't think he has that in his range. But like, he does need to flat it. If he flats with every combo of ace queen, then he's 100%, he's calling too much. He doesn't have enough value in his range. So maybe the fact that he doesn't have a heart is maybe the fact that he doesn't have a heart is a benefit in his mind, because he can bluff at hearts on some potential runouts. But even still, like, given, and again, we've talked about this hand for like 15 minutes now. They don't have the benefit of talking about a hand for 15 minutes in live play. But like, he may be thinking he can rep hearts if heart peels off, even though he doesn't really have like any hearts in his range.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great, thanks. Any thoughts, Steve or Jim, about this?
Yeah, I got some questions. Let's take a quick break just to let people know what a couple of quick things coming up, and then we'll come right back with Brad, because I'm dying to ask a couple questions. Hey guys, late editing drop here for a new announcement. We are excited to announce that we have just added our social distancing series, online free PokerStars home games every night starting Tuesday, March 17th through the end of March. And then we will reassess. So this is going to be run the same way we do our regular monthly home games, but people have asked for more free home games, so we're delivering that. It's not part of the Player of the Year thing. They're just standalone for fun. We will give away a bronze RecPoker pin to everybody who wins a tournament, but mostly it's just fun. It's bragging rights. Join us in the community, and you can go to rec.poker/homegame, and that gives you all the information on how to join the league if you haven't already, as well as how to go ahead and enter those tournaments. So check that out. Email me, Steve, at rec.poker if you have any questions. Also, if you have any interest in joining us on our growth team as an ambassador or affiliate or champion, let me know about that as well. Thanks.
All right, Running Aces Player of the Week. We have Kanat, Ozturk, Dan Stewart, Peter Dwyer, and Dave Elke. This Dave Elke seems to be coming up quite a bit.
That guy's on fire.
He's kicking it. And Binks this week, we've had Cheyenne Bhattacharya. He completed the daily double last Monday at Canterbury. Cheyenne and also Roger Lamp, wearing the sweatshirt, got through a pot of gold qualifier. Rocky Wiley, sporting the new RecPoker hat, took down the Sunday double stack at Running Ace.
Great to see RecPoker Nation representing at the final tables and binking. We got two new ambassadors to welcome to the team. Officially, our new champion, Chad McVean from Niagara Falls, Ontario, one of my favorites, and another of my good buddies from the membership community here, Jamel Cuevas from Schenectady, New York. Thanks, guys, and welcome to you.
For the home games, none other than our very own Taylor Moss, go for TJM, won our 5-card draw event. So, and Steve was happy to know that he is, in fact, not Canadian.
But we did have a Canadian the week before, so the streak is still alive. I want to be clear about that.
This is true. Steve definitely needs to brush up on O Canada. And our next home game will be on April 1st.
No fooling.
No fooling.
And in terms of membership content, we're still plugging away with our March content. It's opponent ranging and player typing. The seminar is now out there. And then on March 25th, we've got the member Q&A at 8 p.m. So if you're a member, just go find that link on the member site. We'll be having a live conversation. Bring your questions. And then in April, we're getting ready to have our seminar. The subject that month is going to be odds, stack to pot ratio, and bet sizing. So we're excited to pull that together as well.
All right, Brad, so we're back, and this is fascinating. This is fantastic stuff, because what we're always preaching too is it's thinking about the process. It's a logical approach to decision making rather than sort of the micro teaching and memorization. So I love how you're thinking about this. My question for you is, it's not even about the strategy for me at this point. It's about how do you process this information. So when you're looking at this, it feels like sometimes it's so daunting for recreational players, myself included, because you've just listed off dozens of considerations, and whether I even know about them or not, how do I process them? How do I give them the right amount of weight? Like, some considerations might lean you more toward folding, some might lean you more toward calling, some might lean you more toward raising. And so there's all of this stuff, and I'm kind of curious, how does your brain operate? Like, is this becoming like second nature, where you just kind of know you've played so much? Or do you have like a process that you actually follow? Or do you have like sort of default decisions and then all these other factors influence them away from that? Like, how are you actually processing all of this information?
So if I had like just the magic bullet answer, I think number one, I'd probably break poker. Break poker. But number two, I don't think it exists, right? I think it's reps. It's deductive reasoning. It's time spent thinking deeply about this game that I love. I've played poker professionally for 16 years, and to be honest, I've always been in love with the strategic aspect. I'm in love with learning, and this is going to sound silly on top of all this whole conversation that I have, but when I'm making these decisions, what I typically trust is my gut and my instinct. And I do ask all these questions, and I do have all these considerations, but the subconscious mind, my subconscious mind, takes all of it in, it analyzes it, and then it gives me a feeling, my intuition. What do I feel about this spot? Like, do I feel gross? Do I feel good? And then, you can obviously logically think about hand ranges and logically do some deductive reasoning. But like, first and foremost, is what does my intuition think about this spot? That's where I start. If I feel disgusted, like if I feel sick to my stomach, like when you told me the turn was a jack, that made me sick. I didn't feel good about that jack. That jack that's a death card. So I trust that more than anything else. And I found that like if I start deviating from that feeling, that's when I start getting myself in trouble. That's when I start doing things like I'm on this topic of the gut and intuition. I've done multiple podcasts today, podcast interviews, and we've talked about Malcolm Gladwell Blink.
Oh, sure.
And we've talked about there's a hand that Garrett played on Live at the Bike where Garrett folds 10-7 on like Jack 8-9 XX versus Andy. Andy's got Queen 10, and it's like these guys that have honed their instincts. Garrett is not asking all those questions in his head. That's not what's going on there. Garrett feels disgusted. Like when Andy bets the river there, Garrett feels disgusted and he feels like Andy has a range of Queen 10 period. And that's why he's able to fold the second nuts. And you can quantify it afterwards. You can break it down, ask all these questions, write them out. But like, that's pretty inefficient, right? It's much more efficient to listen to your internal instinct. And so the real question, I guess, is how do you build that up? How do you build that intuition? How do you get to that point? And I don't know 100% the answer. All I have is my path and what I did. And my path is obsession. These questions that I just asked, this is not something that is new for me. Even when I first started playing cards, me and my friend, we'd go on the boat, played on a cruise to nowhere. That's how I started in the live realm. And we would ask 100 questions to each other. Like, oh, what if he had this hand? What if he had this hand? What would we do here? What about this sizing? How do you like this sizing? And he was obsessed, just like me. He wanted to be the best player in the world. I was not so ambitious as that, but I wanted to be the best player I was capable of becoming. And that curiosity of asking these questions, being obsessive, having somebody as a sounding board to give you feedback, not just anybody, not just some dude on the street, but having somebody that genuinely, my podcast is Chasing Poker Greatness. You find somebody that's chasing poker greatness and you're chasing poker greatness, link up with them. That's the fastest path to success playing cards that you can take. You just got to find those people.
I love it. I know that reminds me of, when we were speaking with Fedor Holtz and what he talked about and, finding his group of people that were all chasing poker greatness. And I know you've talked to Fedor as well and kind of got that same idea where they all just keep cranking, they keep going after it. And it seems like, what you're saying too is one of our tenets, which is really try to learn the game in community. For some people are really, can learn the game by themselves, but this idea of finding the right people to bounce ideas off of, learn from each other, be transparent about how you play and be willing to accept feedback. But this curiosity thing, I always come back to that as well. Just being curious, asking questions, what ifs. I think that is a huge insight, because what I wanted to get at was in lieu of all the reps, we have different audiences. Our audience is almost exclusively recreational players and even less experienced recreational players who are looking at this going, all right, I play at the bar once or twice a week. I want to become as good as I can. And I know there's no substitute for reps, but what can I do in my 5 hours a week of playing that'll help me become a better player? And so I don't know if you can address that a little bit, because I know the answer is, play more, study more. But for those of us who aren't in a situation right now in our life situation, I guess, we can't do that. What would you advise for folks like that to try to improve their game who have this limited time and budget?
So it's difficult, and I'm going to give something away from my course that I've been working on. One of the elegant solutions that I've managed to come up with is, poker. Like I said, poker is a game of people. You got to understand people. You got to understand incentive. You need to understand what drives decision making and what players are trying to get you to do. And so part of my course is logic, deductive reasoning, and a question that I came up with that I'm calling the focusing question is, given the information that my opponent has, what are they incentivized to do? What action are they incentivized to take? And so just based on this simple logical question, because you need to understand, like, most of the time, if you're playing in a bar poker league, players are going to be incentivized by two things. What are they?
Just having fun is one of their big incentives, and
Their hand,
probably putting a bad beat on people, right?
the strength, the pure strength of their hand, the two cards in front of them. Those are the two things.
Sure. Okay.
Like, that's going to incentivize their actions. If they have aces under the gun, they're going to raise. If they have deuce seven, they're going to fold, period, without taking anything else into consideration. And so you need to understand people, and, like, when it comes to, like, ranging hands and thinking logically, like, what's this guy trying to accomplish? What's this girl trying to accomplish? When they bet 3/4 pot last time, what was their next action? Did they check fold? What did they do when they bet 25% pot? Did they go ahead and pot the turn? Like, you need to find out people's patterns, because people fall into patterns all the time, and no matter what they say or what they might think, we're not even aware of ourselves falling into patterns. But, like, if somebody is betting pot when they have a strong hand, and they're betting 25% when they have a weak hand, just pay attention. Put that pattern together and say, oh, okay, this dude's betting 25% pot when they're weak. Therefore, I don't care what cards I have. I'm going to raise that 25% pot bet. And if they bet full pot in a spot where I have a pretty strong hand, then you just fold it. Like, it's just adapting and learning to the patterns of specific players, which, kind of goes back to my earlier point of, like, a student will come to me with a spot, and they'll give me just like a straight hand history and be like, what do we do? And I'm like, I don't know. Who's this person? What are they thinking? What have you witnessed? What have you observed? Are they on tilt? Like, how do they structure their bets? Like, what patterns do they have? This is fundamentally, this is the heart of poker.
Oh man, that's so good. It's so good. I think for a lot of the rec players that's daunting, but I think the point is, let's start somewhere. And I think this idea of saying exactly what you said, what are they trying to accomplish? Well, if your answer is I don't know, well, then that's where you start to figure out, well, how do I figure out what they're trying to accomplish? And that's where you're saying, well, watch their patterns are. Everybody
listening right now, just take a second and just verbally express this. It's okay to be wrong. We're playing a game that is chaotic by nature. We're gonna have a low level of certainty in a lot of decisions that we make. I have a low level of certainty in a lot of decisions that I make every single day, and I try to play 1,000 hands a day of cash game, and you just move forward. Like, you're trying to, when you seek perfection in poker, you'll always fall short. You'll never attain it, and a lot of times, you get this idea that, oh, I played perfectly, I got my money in good every single time, and, like, no, you didn't. Stop it. Like, nobody plays, like, Phil Ivey on record says, I've never played a perfect session. Yeah, nobody plays a perfect session. Nobody plays a perfect tournament. Like, get comfortable in the knowledge that you don't know everything. Be comfortable saying, I don't know, right? Student comes to me with a question. I don't know. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell them, I don't know the answer. Let's investigate it. Let's think about this. Somebody, if a player that I respect who's in my network says, Brad, like, if I'm confident that I played a hand well, I tell it to him, and he's like, Brad, I don't like that line. I don't like what you did there. I'm not going to get entrenched in my view and try to be combative. I'm going to say, okay, cool. Like, let's look into this. Maybe I can change my opinion, right? Like, in an argument between two people, who wins an argument, right? Like, whatever it is, the person that ultimately wins at the end of the debate or the argument is the person who changes their view, because they learned something. They grew from this debate. They grew from this interaction. The other person already knew it, right? They didn't learn anything new. They didn't grow. So I try to come at it from that perspective of, like, I'm okay with changing my thought process. I'm okay with changing my opinion. When somebody gives me feedback that differs from my own, great. This is a learning opportunity. And in poker, it's amazing how certain people can be. And so certain, in fact, that, like, I can look at a hand and tell somebody point blank, 100%, this is wrong. I know this is bad, and they'll fight me tooth and nail till the end of the world, trying to justify the hand. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, this is just not good. Like, what? And like, those guys, if you're like that in poker, you have no hope. You have no hope of becoming a winning player ever. because you're not coachable, you're not teachable. And poker, you know, I want to, I know that it's easy for somebody listening to this to maybe get discouraged about the complexity of poker, but that's the point. It's not easy. It's hard. There's chaos. And if it were easy, then nobody would be playing it. You know, there would be no high roller tournaments. There would be no super high cash games because it would be solved. There'd be no online poker because bots, you just stick a bot in there and they'd make great decisions, right? The bots have to take into account the human element, and that is hard as hell for a bot, even with artificial intelligence, to implement in real time. And so, you know, if you think about it in that way, like, embrace the complexity, embrace the fact that this game is hard, understand you don't know everything, and like from a starting point, that's where I would start as a poker player.
I love it. I believe this is what you refer to as a greatness bomb on your show, right?
I don't know. I'm not going to call anything that I ever say a greatness bomb. I think that's.
Well, I think it was. I think it was tremendous insight. I think it was really tremendous insight. I think that's super helpful for people to hear that, and I love that. Just call it what it is. It's hard. It's complex, but that should be exciting. That should be the great adventure of sort of working into, you know, the complexity and seeing what we can discover. That should be something that engages us more than turns us away.
I've played millions of hands and I'm still learning. I still do sims. I still node lock. I still talk to my friends. I still learn. Like, you know, when you like look at the available options, right? You raise pre, somebody calls, and then you have a bajillion different type flops, and then on top of that you have a bajillion different turns and a bajillion different rivers, and you know the formations are different. People can bet any amount that they want. Like, they can bet 1/4 pot, they can bet 1/2 pot, they can just 2x pot, they can shove. Like, you know, there's, when you take into account all of the complexity, like, I love it. You know, I'm 15 years in, I still learn things. I mean, how boring would it be to be involved in this game this long, have it all figured out, and just, you know, monotonously clicking buttons? I mean, it's mentally stimulating even to this day.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're running out of time here, Brad. So what I want to do is wrap up but give you an opportunity to talk about where can people find you. I know there's people listening right now that are saying, all right, I need to connect with this dude. I need to learn more from this guy. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
EnhanceYourEdge.com. On Twitter, I'm at EnhanceYourEdge. Chasing Poker Greatness podcast across the board. All of those places. Brad at EnhanceYourEdge.com. Pretty easy peasy to contact me.
All right. We'll for sure put yourself in our show notes too, so if people didn't hear that or didn't catch it, they can find you. But yeah, Enhance Your Edge. The podcast is Chasing Poker Greatness. Brad, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you stopping by the RecPoker podcast and hanging out with us for a while.
Yeah, my pleasure too, man. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, thanks to Brad Wilson. Thanks to Chris and to Jim. Next week, we got Ian Matakis jumping on here. We're going to close off here. We're going to stay tuned here we got some announcements after the fact here. But for all intents and purposes, we are done with the show for right now. So have a great week on and off the felt.
Have one more question.
Oh,
what did
yes.
Jim do? What did Jim do?
Jim disappeared. I think.
What does he do? He didn't say anything the whole thing.
So
he's just sitting there.
He's off his. It looks like he went home. Looks like he drove home. That's what he did when he was on. Is that what happened?
I was listening very carefully and driving very safely at the same time.
Well, the internet connection I know is a little sketchy, so I know you were kind of avoiding that piece of it. Jim's normally one of our chatty guys, you know, but yeah, I figured he was driving or something. So he must have been super intimidated by you, Brad. I'm guessing that's probably what happened.
It was just too much good content to interrupt with my drivel. Brad, you were driving it home. Next time I get you on here, though, I do want to talk about some differences between tournament play and cash play, because I really want to pick your brain on that. That would be really good for a lot of our members, and me personally, I'm selfishly interested. So let's get you back on here sometime soon.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Brad, thanks again, man. I appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
My pleasure.
All right. Take care. All right, Chris, Jim, we'll chat with you guys later. Welcome to the announcements section for the RecPoker podcast. You're going to hear all about our free stuff, how you can support us, the products available for purchase, products from our affiliates, how to connect further, and how to reach us. There are 5 main ways to engage for free. You can play our PokerStars home games the first and second Wednesday of every month at 8 o'clock Central Time. You can join us on Discord for all kinds of great conversation and virtual railing. We have the Facebook group that's always open for discussion. You can follow us on Twitter at RecPoker, where we have all kinds of cool stuff posted and we keep you up to speed on everything going on. And you can join our email list to get our weekly newsletter, Twerp, This Week in RecPoker. There are also 5 ways that you can support us. You can support us on Patreon for as low as $1 a month, and it'll give you a chance to sit in on the podcast. You can like, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you hear the podcast. You can share, retweet, comment on Facebook and Twitter. You can rep the brand. We got merchandise available. And most of all, you can let other people know about us. There are 5 main RecPoker products currently available to purchase. You can get a membership for $10 a month or $100 a year to get access to all of our content and our other discussions. You can join the Bar League community, which is $300 a year, but only $100 a year if you join by March 31st. You can become part of the homegame community, which is $100 a year, but only $40 a year if you join by March 31st. You can submit videos for analysis by your choice of coaches, or you can get personal one-on-one coaching with your choice of coaches. We are currently building up our affiliate program, and right now, we are an affiliate for Learn Pro Poker. You can use our code and get some discounts, some special deals. Go to rec.poker and look for Learn Pro Poker. If you want to connect further and engage more deeply, you can do so by becoming an ambassador, by representing RecPoker in a specific area. You can become an affiliate, which helps spread the word and sell products. You can become a champion, where you promote the brand, you wear the merch, you're active on social media, and you have a chance to refer products for a commission. Or you can be just a friend of RecPoker and help us spread the word that way. You can also become a sponsor of the podcast, some of our events, or all things RecPoker. There's several ways that you can reach out to contact us if you need to. Rec.poker, Discord, email, newsletter, Twerp, Facebook, Twitter. But you can get all the information at rec.poker or just email me, Steve, at rec.poker. Thanks once again to our official sponsor, Running Aces Racetrack Casino and Hotel, who has supported us since episode number 1. Also thanks to Learn Pro Poker and Website Amp. Make it a great week, everybody.